Hello, and welcome back to Social Media Social Club, the podcast where we talk all things social media.
That we do, and we're back for the second part of our double bill with Less Waste Laura. The first part, you might have heard, we were talking a lot about her sustainability journey and becoming an influencer, and talking about greenwashing and how to improve your brand's messaging and controversies. The controversies were...
Shocking.
The tea was hot.
Yeah, fighting.
Yes, the green tea.
Oh,
did you like that? But in part two, we talked about her work on her biggest project, I suppose, to date, her anti-vape campaign in Scotland and the rest of the UK. I found this pretty fascinating, Hannah.
It's really interesting to hear from Laura how this campaign started as well, and how it's came from something that was just her to becoming a campaign that's been taken across the UK, and also how TikTok and other social platforms have helped her to really get it to the place that it is now. So I think that was really interesting for us as marketers as well, and there's a lot that we can take from that and learn from it to put across all different things that we work on for our clients as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Laura was just fantastic to talk to in both episodes. So huge thanks to her, and we hope you get as much out of it as we did. So yeah, enjoy.
Let's dive in.
Let's talk about your no vapes.
This feels like, you know, when they get they do like an interview with like a pop star, they're trying to talk about everything other than like their number one single.
This is
first.
This
you know, and they're like,
that's my top.
This is the point.
My
This
Christmas
is the
number
point where
one.
Graham Norton brings out the enormous vinyl of their latest album, and we talk
It's a
about
giant vape.
it. Yeah.
This is one I collected earlier.
Oh no!
how did I not see that one? So big.
So I'm just gonna quote back to you a couple of stats from your website, which I thought were quite interesting, and who I hope the listeners and or viewers at home might find interesting as well. Users in the UK are throwing away around 5 disposable vapes every week. The number of discarded vapes accounts for around 10 tonnes of lithium being sent to landfill or waste incinerators each year, enough metal to make batteries for 1,200 electric cars. Now, 5 disposable vapes, if my flatmate is watching this, you're way over that.
Remember we weren't going to do that, Josh?
We weren't going to do that.
No, we are. Josh's flatmate.
She kept asking, can you shout me out for some reason on the TikTok?
Oh no.
But she knows our vape thing. It's like a thing.
This is the problem.
And she's trying to stop. But maybe that'll help. The next one is zombie batteries have been found to cause hundreds of fires a year at recycling plants after being thrown away incorrectly. And brackets disposable vapes would be classed in this group.
Yeah.
So those are some pretty frightening statistics, chilling even. And quite makes you a bit sick when you think about the amount of lithium from the batteries being used. When you started this campaign, how aware was it? Just something that you were like, this is a bit of an eyesore? What was the timeline and I guess the motivation? Because you said it started out as a tweet. How did it end up like this?
So
That sounded like, is that what Mr. Freeze
It
said? Started out with a tweet. How did it end up like this?
it was only a tweet.
I'm glad you picked up on that.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, carry on.
How
Well,
did it end up like this?
I'm trying to think of any of their lyrics I can squeeze in there. But yeah, so it started as a tweet. That's fair. So in September 2022, so just before I started my PhD, I was finished up a job, just about to start another one, and so I kind of had a lot of free time. Very bored. But it was actually when I was on a walk with my dog. So I've got a lovely little dog, and we go walking.
What's your dog's name? Can we shout the dog out?
Cooper.
Cooper, hello.
Sorry, he's not here, but he would definitely move. But do you know, actually, fun facts about Cooper though, because here's the original story. Right, I'll tell the story, and then you'll get it.
so
He had a real vaping problem. No, so it was so on a walk with my dog, I started to find loads of vapes, and he actually came running out of bush with one in his mouth. Oh god! And then I'll fast forward to this bit, which is the local, literally, it's a hard life. And this local paper got in touch and was like, "We're really we saw your tweet about this issue, disposable vapes, and finding them as littering your dog. Like, can we cover this in the local paper?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And they did the story, and then they said, well, for the story, we'd like to
have some photos, obviously, do you have like the vapes or whatever? And they were like, oh, can you bring your dog? And it was like classic like local paper stuff, like me and the dog, and I'm like frowning.
You looking fuming, like,
and the dog's like and we're like, I think there's even one where I'm
my
holding
dog,
him,
I'm not happy with this either.
and I'm like, you know, he's there and I'm there, and I think there's even one where I'm like holding the vape out, you know, it's like just
Classic local journalism, like
no vaping. So it was awful. But basically, you know, I started finding these as litter, and being an eco person, like I sort of pick up wee bits as I go, and I started to find all these vapes, and I was like, this is like, where are these coming from? You know, I knew what they were, but I hadn't really thought too much about what they were. And so I tweeted, like, I keep finding these as litter. Is anybody else finding these? Because I lived quite close to high school, so I was like, it's probably kids, but what's going on? And from that tweet, like, it went viral, and people were like, yeah, I've been seeing them everywhere. Like, loads of litter picking groups were obviously like, yeah, we're finding them everywhere, but loads of regular people who were like, yeah, I keep seeing these. And so I started to think, well, is anybody talking about this? So I started to get in touch with people like Keep Scotland Beautiful, who do loads of litter stuff, or the Marine Conservation Society, who do loads of beach cleans, and I got in touch with all these organisations and was like, has anybody, you know, started working on these? Because there's loads of different campaigns about cigarette butts or about plastic bags or whatever, so I was kind of wondering. And very quickly, just through kind of bringing together a few people, we realised that nobody was looking at them. So nobody, you know, there was no research, there was no campaign, there was nothing. So kind of at the end of 2022, I sort of set up this like mini coalition of people and organisations who were keen to just do something about it. And it was across environment and public health, because obviously it kind of crosses that boundary. And so, you know, we started to have meetings together, and we didn't come on a Zoom call and say, right, let's ban these disposable vapes. We said, let's explore the impact. So we started to look into, you know, the kind of materials that are inside them, the amount that were being used, the waste, you know, the damage that they have to the environment. We started speaking to the waste industry, you know, asking them about that. And I also started to speak to vape shops and, you know, the vaping industry and say, like, come on, like, what's going on here? So it honestly just started really organically. But I think social media played a huge role in that, because like, it was a very visual thing. So I started to document like how many I was finding and doing these litter picks and counting them, and it was like a very, you know, good way of sort of getting the message across. And, you know, I won't go into everything we've done, but we're now like over a year on, and the government, the UK government consultation on vaping has just ended. So just through this campaign, we managed to get the UK government, which it was on behalf of all 4 nations as well, to do a full-blown consultation. We've had events in Holyrood, in Westminster, we've had cross-party support. I've had 29 of the 32 Scottish councils like take this to meetings and support a ban. Like, it's been amazing. And like the social media part of it has been a huge bit, because, you know, some of the stuff that like I did on TikTok, for example, was getting like over 1 million views like just for these videos. So fantastic. But honestly, it just started with like, here's a problem I'm seeing. Okay, everybody's seeing it, but nobody is like looking at it. And, you know, some of the stats there. So, you know, in the UK, we're using 5 million a week. Jesus. And if you think of all these other electronics, right? So you've got your phone, your laptop, you might have a smartwatch, all of those you charge. In your house, you might have a toaster, a kettle, a microwave. It all gets plugged into the wall. There is no other disposable electronic device. These are the first thing that have come into the mainstream, and people are throwing valuable resources away every single day. And they're really hard to recycle, like nearly impossible, and we're just not doing it at scale. And the fire thing is what really, really gets me, is like when lithium batteries are damaged, they can explode and cause fires. And there are some terrifying videos out there. And a lot of our waste facilities are now having to spend hundreds of thousands of pounds on fancy infrared cameras. One of them even in Perth had to buy a mini fire truck, because they were like, these things are coming in at scale. We are putting out fires literally all the time. We need to have infrastructure, because these things can be so combustible, and if they catch fire in a bundle of waste that's also flammable, like a whole site could get burnt down. So to me, like, the health and safety of our waste workers is like absolutely key. So it's mental, actually, like when you think about the problem, all because we've created these £3 disposable fruity unicorn frappe flavoured vapes for like 13-year-olds and Josh's flatmate to use.
the way that social media plays a part in this is this kind of like collectible aspect to it. And it's like, I've seen videos where it's like people are kind of like showing with pride, like, all my vapes collected here, and like I've got to like get them all in like all the different colours and all the different brands. And it's like, do you even realise what it is that you're collecting
Extremely deadly Pokemon cards.
Well, yeah.
Sort of. Yeah, like...
They probably have
combust.
Pokemon vapes, that's the problem.
I know, yeah.
A little Bulbasaur vape.
I know,
Like.
but it's true, like, actually as well, you know, we've chatted about what words can you use, you know, you can say things are eco-friendly and all the rest of it, but with vapes, like, there really aren't that many restrictions as well with how you market them. So there is some statements that have to be on the packaging because it's got nicotine in it, so it has to kind of state that. But actually, the colours, the flavours, like, the way that it's marketed is bizarre. You know, they are like a lifestyle accessory. You know, and they are lovely. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, it's not an unpleasant experience to vape, you know, really. And so I think that's the difficulty, is like we're kind of fighting against that. And I think it is this persona that these are a completely harmless product. But suddenly when you are months down the line and you've got teenagers who like can't get through a school lesson without nipping outside for a vape, like that's when you know you've got a problem. And the environmental stuff is like the other side of it. You know, it's like all those unintended consequences, which is, you know, these are also using up all these horrible resources, you know, that we need to be keeping for other things. But
I don't think many people would know how finite a resource that is.
Yeah.
Like, would you mind just kind of like speaking a little bit about that, like, and showing how serious this is? Like,
yeah, it's actually classed as a critical material because it's needed for so much important products and infrastructure, but it is so finite. And so, you know, we need it for things like electric, like batteries, and that's for things like electric buses, electric cars, and like lots of other infrastructure. So the fact that we're wasting it on like £3 fruity vapes is absolutely ridiculous. And a lot of the time it's made even worse because those products are being thrown in the bin. So they're going to landfill, we're never getting those resources back, or they're being incinerated. Again, we're not getting those resources back. And so the fact that we're wasting it is, you know, absolutely criminal. But also a lot of the materials that are inside these, like, they are critically mined products. So this is not just something that you like buy off the shelf, like they have to be mined. There's a lot of labour involved in that. There's a lot of like dodgy supply chains, like, you know, around the world. And so the fact that we're putting so much pressure on these systems and on this product, literally just for like something that is completely pointless. And I think the one thing that really blows my mind is there's been lots of engineers involved in this as well. The batteries that are inside these disposable vapes are rechargeable. You can recharge them up to about 500 times. But they've been designed to just run out and then you throw it away. But they could be, if they stuck a charging port in it and they made them reusable, refillable, rechargeable, they could be. So we are also just like wasting resources and not thinking about circular. It's ridiculous.
So that is like making me feel a bit sick.
Yeah.
Right. And it should, you know, like, but in terms of effectively marketing anti-vape kind of conversations, as you have been doing, there's obviously the health side of it, but there's also this side of it as well. Do you find there's been a difference in because I imagine you've tried both ways of speaking about it.
Yeah.
What have you found that the difference are in speaking about those things on social and I guess across platforms, because we've been talking about TikTok a lot.
Yeah.
But like, do you feel there's like more of a backlash towards certain ways of speaking about it or not? Because we've spoken about like the doom and gloom aspect of it, and that is pretty scary.
Yeah.
What do you think what has been the most effective way of actually talking about this?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got to have a really good hook. So my hook in is the litter picking, right? Because everybody hates litter, except people who litter. But like, everybody hates it. You know, nobody likes it. So I would go on these like walks and like litter pick them and find them and count them up and kind of talk about it. But in that concept, you could then bring in other elements of it. So you've hooked people in because they're like, oh, I hate litter, I'm interested in this video. But then you also get to talk about whether it's the mining or the fires or like whatever it might be. So I think you just have to have an interesting hook. And I don't think coming in and being like, these are killing our young people, like that's, you know, not the messaging that works. And I think partly it's about also knowing where to target your anger or your frustration. So there are millions of people every single week in the UK that use disposable vapes. So it would not be worth my energy to individually target people and be like, you are the problem because you've got these disposable vapes. Instead, it's about shifting it and say, where is the problem lying, and like how could we have the biggest change? So I think there needs to be like a government change. So that's why we'd be kind of campaigning for regulation. But I also think the retailers have a big responsibility. Like they, first of all, are selling to kids, so like that needs tightened up. But also they aren't providing any space for people to come and take them back to get recycled, and that's something that's actually in the law. They should be doing that. And so it's about targeting your efforts. It's like, instead of going to individually people and making them feel really bad, it's about saying, okay, how can we make it so that they can do the right thing, but we're also addressing like the big problems. But it's hard, you know, especially when something is so urgent. Like, so this campaign has been going on for over a year now, so over 52 weeks, and every single one of those 52 weeks there's been 5 million of these thrown away, and you're just like, oh my gosh, like that is bonkers to think of how much that is. But I think that's why you've got to kind of think about making the biggest impact, and that is not going after individuals. So like, never in my videos have I been like, you are the problem to like individual people, but I've tried to like address, here is the problem, and like, here's what you can do. So like, if you're a vapor, can you please get a reusable one, a refillable one? Like, that's the best option for you to do it sustainably. If you aren't a vapor, like, maybe don't pick it up. It's not it's not a lifestyle accessory. So I guess like trying to talk about it in the round. But it's difficult. It's not an easy balance.
Have you found, like, in terms of like you trying to get this message out there, obviously you'd mentioned like getting like 1 million views on TikTok. When you get to that point, you're obviously reaching a slightly new audience. So that is like, I think that to me, that's the great thing about TikTok, because you can have one follower and have a video that takes off and gets 1 million views, but obviously you might be used to having views from a certain community and like people that are very like-minded. When you get those kind of like higher level of views, is that when you find like your comments are a bit more filled with people like questioning it or pushing back? Have you noticed that a bit more, or do you feel like there's more people that you're able to maybe change their minds?
I've definitely been cyberbullied by like 13-year-olds on TikTok.
Haven't we all?
They're trying to take away.
Relatable.
I know. I mean, I think that's it, you know. But actually, one of the things I love about social media is it's an opportunity to have a conversation and to discuss an issue. And when you take the time to do that, you can change people's minds. And so, you know, whether it's kids being like, oh, you're just boring, bet you're fun at parties, like all that kind of stuff. But actually over time, they do tend to come round to what you're talking about. And it's because it's probably the first time they've heard someone really mentioning some of this. And I think with the environmental side as well, a lot of people just didn't know. Like physically, you don't know what's inside these things. So a lot of people were pretty shocked to learn that there was all these, you know, horrible like pieces of waste and all the rest of it. But yeah, I mean, I think I enjoy like engaging with people, because there's literally no point in me sitting and talking in a room full of people that agree with me about an issue. Like that's never where you're going to get the change. And actually what I love to do on TikTok as well is like when people leave a comment that is a really good conversation starter, like use that and make a new video and be like, this is a great question, like let's address this and talk about why, you know, this is wrong, or like let's build upon this. And that's what I love about it, because it's not just, oh, you've got 60 seconds to like say everything. It's like actually you can say something and then use that to kind of build upon. And I think TikTok and social media has been like the biggest way to spread a lot of this. And I think also the other ways that you can get the message out there. So if you take social media out of it, the only other way to get messages out there is like, well, radio, TV, news, but like you're kind of at the whim of other people who may or may not want to talk about it. Exactly. So it's like, actually with social media, I can post every single day. Like from my house, I can be posting regularly. So it's the thing that I can control. And obviously we've had amazing like media coverage and like all this stuff we've had. Like there was even a panorama out about it. Like it's been amazing. But I don't control any of that. Like other people do. So I think it's also utilising this amazing platform. And as you say, you've got the regular people that you chat to every single day. But then there are some times that you blast out and you go viral and like get to speak to these new audiences. And that, you know, is fantastic. And there's even been cool stuff like a guy from Canada who works in one of their local councils was like, hey, I just randomly came across one of your TikToks about Scottish councils banning disposable vapes or supporting a ban. I want to do that over here. Can we like set up a Zoom call? And now he's off like championing that over there. But you're like, just from these like So it's like amazing to see what could come out of it.
Yeah.
If you've got a business that's to do with that, I suppose, as long as you're being honest, I think that's really it, isn't it? Like,
yeah. I mean, I like to see behind the scenes as well, because whether we're talking about like campaigning or sustainability or anything, I like to know who I'm working with or like who's behind the scenes. Because yes, you've got like mega big brands that maybe don't have people, you know, because it's so big and it's so corporate. But the majority of businesses like have people, and you want to get to know the people.
Yeah.
And like when you sent me that email to like come on this podcast, right? If you guys didn't have a TikTok, I probably would have been like, who is this random social media? Do you know what I mean? I would have been I would have had to Google you and like find out who you are. But I was like, I know these guys because I've seen them on TikTok. Because I was like, I know your faces. I know things that you like and don't like. And like, but I was like, okay, this brand has a bit more personality. I feel a bit more comfortable knowing who you are, and you feel like you get to know them a bit more. And I think more organisations should do that. Just like actually show the behind the scenes of like what's going on. And I definitely think there's been a shift when it comes to all social media, that it's just moving more to organic, right? Like all these like very like scripted and like perfect photos and all the rest of it, like it is just a bit nonsense.
They
sometimes.
always do the worst for us. Like stock imagery, overly graphic led. I mean, sometimes you have to, but like that's stuff that always flops compared to just like an honest photo of someone doing something, whatever if it's especially something they care about, like it's
and
nice.
I think I appreciate that more, and I think that works for sustainability. Like if a brand is being honest about like, here's the things that we're doing well, here's the things we want to work on, I'm like, love that. They're not doing we're being sustainable this week, because, and I think that goes with a lot of stuff though. And I think for the campaign, the fact that I've been the face of it, like it's a person.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think like there has been organisations obviously supporting it and taking it on, but I remember like in the last few months, Greenpeace took it on. And I had a meeting with Greenpeace, and they were like, we're going to take this on, we're going to like launch kind of their own ban disposable waste campaign, but it was like, whatever, I was happy they were doing it. But like, I love Greenpeace, but it's so corporate, right?
Yeah.
It's like Greenpeace, this big organisation, and you're a bit like...
It's got a lot of baggage.
Yeah, and you're like, okay, but... I'm just me,
Leslie
right?
Slaughter,
I'm just Leslie Slaughter.
So obviously you'd spoken about the importance of like putting yourself out there as a person. Did you ever have any kind of nervousness around doing that? Because it's obviously, you're speaking about, it's something that we've done with our people at Hydrogen, and at the start when I started doing those TikTok videos, everyone was a bit like, I don't know if I want to be in it, and then we got much more comfortable with it to now the point where it is just something that people want to be involved in. And it's like, people aren't necessarily, we're not all like actors and performers, we're just people that do a job, and then you happen to put it out on social media. So did you feel a kind of nervousness around that at the start, and putting yourself out there and your kind of image as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think years ago, like it was something I really thought about, because I was like, oh, it's also a bit of a vain thing that you're like, oh, I'm going to take lots of photos and videos and things. But I think I think it works really well for what I do. And I see social media as a tool in my toolbox for the work that I do. And I think, it also helps with the cause a little bit more, because people see it as a person and like talk to you about it. And I think, so I mean, obviously you have to be careful and like all the rest of it, because you are very public, and a lot of the time I'm walking about places near where I live and that sort of thing. But actually, you just get used to it, and you get used to it. But I also see that like in a campaign or in anything, right? So this podcast, right? You two are not doing this podcast on your own. There are a bunch of people in this room. Whoa. And everyone has, everyone's got a different skill set, right? So there's probably people in this room who are like, I would hate to be the presenter, but I'm happy to do the camera or the sound or the prep beforehand or whatever. And I think it's the same with all the work that I do. Often the organisations that I'm working with or the people are like, you go and do that, like you do the radio thing or you do the talk, because I don't want to do that. But they are helping writing policy briefings, or they're the ones coming up with like the captions or doing the graphics, and I'm like, that's great, because that's like their gig, not mine. So I also think I just see it as my role. I'm the one who's kind of happy to like talk on camera, or it is a skill, so like, some people just aren't that good at it, and maybe they could practice and like learn, but actually it's just about seeing that's what I do, that's my gig, and kind of seeing it as that. So it's not, I don't really think about it too much anymore, but it is also kind of funny though when people are like, vapes? You're like, that's me?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, that's nice.
No, because that's the thing, because even when we said, like, there's a few people in the office yesterday saying, who is it that's coming in? And I said, Lorna, less waste Lorna. And it was like, she's so cool, I've seen her. And it's like, that's the thing, like, you do become a bit of, like, a personality.
I think, like, it can help, because if there's some obscure campaign or like brand over here that's not very memorable, like you're never going to get the impact that you want to see. But if you make like a whole world out of what you're trying to do, like people are totally behind it. And I think that to me is like what I've seen through this campaign is like actually taking it on and like being the face of it also helps bring a lot more change, because people feel like they know you and they understand it and they trust your voice. It's not just like an organisation who's branded something and they're trying to push out a message. It's like actually a really authentic thing. And I think that's honestly why it's been so successful, is because people aren't seeing it as like some obscure thing. They're like, oh, that's Laura, who's like an environmental scientist, so she's really trying to do her bit. And I think there's obviously tons of people behind it, but that's been a real benefit.
Amazing.
I think that's a great place to conclude the podcast. Thank you so much, Laura. That was fantastic. Just before we can conclude, what's so released in 2024? What's kind of next for you? What's coming up for you?
Yeah, I still need to do this PhD. So I feel like I need to. That's like that. I mean, that sort of bumbles along in the background. Yes. So I mean so that's a lot of what my day job is. And I think the vape stuff, hopefully, like springtime, we'll maybe have some sort of decision, whether that's from the UK or Scotland. And I think that's really made me think a lot about campaigning and thinking about how to help other people like utilise it. I think I'm also quite passionate about researchers using social media, so I want to try and encourage more researchers to like get involved in that. And then we'll kind of see like what other projects pop up. But I'm like open to just like helping organisations like charities and stuff just share their message. So I kind of like that random things come up all the time. So
that's great. If anyone is listening or watching the podcast and they really want to support what you're doing with the vape campaign or anything else, what is the best way to kind of get involved with that?
Yeah, I mean, so Less Waste Laura is where you find me online, and I've got lesswastelaura.com is like a website full of all the stuff that I do, and I'm like more than happy to just like help people, even if it's like navigate this space as an individual if they're doing similar stuff, or like organisations, because I think there's loads of cool stuff out there and loads of great sustainable stuff, and I want to like help people shout about it and share about it, so people could just like get in touch with me there and see what I'm up to.
Brilliant. Yeah, because that's usually the bit where we go, do you have anything to plug? But I think if you don't know what Laura wants to plug at this point in the podcast, you haven't really been listening that well. So, but it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, Laura. It's been fantastic. Before we go, how can people find us?
Well, we're on socialmedia.socialclub on Instagram and TikTok, and Social Media Social Club on YouTube.
That's correct. If you want to reach out to us, please feel free to send us a DM or comment on any of our socials, or give us a wee 5-star on your streaming platforms as well. Or our review, that's appreciated too. But thanks very much. Thanks, Laura.
Thanks.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.